Hi there. My name is Juliana Hock, and I help people who may or may not have been diagnosed with ADHD, and I help you go from suffering to feeling in control and productive. Welcome to Easy ADHD Coaching. And today we have a very special recording. And not only is my expert from my area in the state of Maryland, but she's also ICF certified coach, which means a lot to me. And if you've been following my channel, working with a certified coach is very important to me. Just so that you can see through your personal transformation that is more personalized to your brain development. And so for today's topic is the intersection of a life coach and ADHD coach and talking about personal transformation. And to do so, I invited Krista to come on here today. Now I'm going to go ahead and read Krista's bio. Krista is an ICF certified executive coach and life coach who helps professional women overcome burnout and integrate their lives in a way that supports long-term health, success, and happiness. Her dual certifications and life experience as a woman in business and mother allow her to help her clients personally and professionally with a high degree of empathy, confidentiality, and formal qualifications. Krista's professional experience includes developing and managing teams in the mortgage banking industry and vice president and director roles. Although her professional life was taking off, there was a point when she was drowning in responsibility, obligations, and lack of direction as a full-time working mother with ADHD. She was sacrificing her mental and physical health to prove herself personally and professionally. She knew something had to change. She dedicated years to a journey of self-development and prioritizing her mental and physical health. This profound transformation empowered her to become a coach driven by a deep desire to help women push past their self-limiting beliefs, step into their true purpose, and design an integrated lifestyle that fuels them, not drains them. Welcome, Krista.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. And just what a wonderful bio. And I can really relate to, the life hitting you and the responsibilities all at one time and overcoming that burnout. And that a lot of us can see that with as a result of the pandemic and being high functioning adults in life, all of these responsibilities at one time. And I also really relate to being, I call myself the professional self-development guru. And then that's when I realized, oh, certain life coaches didn't work for me. I had to work with a coach that understand my brain, could work with me with my brain wiring. So I really could relate to your bio. So really thank you for being here. And so a lot of our listeners will be able to relate to you.
I'm so excited to be here. So excited to be here.
And, so that being said, this channel is dedicated not only to adults and working professionals, but also parents and children. So today we are more so focusing on the adult and the working professional in the workplace. So without further ado, let's jump on into a goal setting question. So I wanted to ask you, in what ways do you support clients in setting and achieving meaningful personal growth goals, nurturing self-awareness, and boosting self-confidence?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when working with clients, I think the biggest thing is making sure that we're kind of getting them to get in touch with their why behind the goal that they want to set. Because I think often if there's not a deep, meaningful why behind a goal that you want to set for yourself, when you start to hit those times where you kind of lose focus and whatever, which is natural, it happens to everyone. It's easier to kind of give up or switch directions quickly if you don't have that deep, meaningful why. And I found that a lot of my clients, sometimes the original goal they set is kind of like a should goal. They feel like they should do that. And it's not. And then when they're trying to think of the deep meaning, they're like, well, maybe I don't actually want to do that, you know? So kind of just getting clear on the why behind the goal is huge. And also something with the resilience and awareness is I think a lot of times people think you set a goal and it goes like this. perfect straight line to get to it. And then if for some reason it goes down, we either stop or just like, meh. But people don't realize that a true goal is like this. You go down and you go back up, you go down, but you're still going up the whole time. But there's going to be better days. There's going to be worse days. There's going to be times where you're not as focused and times when you are. But to keep going is the, kind of just that I try to work with clients through and not giving up and reconnecting them with that why. I think that's probably the biggest.
Yeah, that channeling the why is so important because when we do want to give up, we can go back to either the visual or the self statement of this is what makes me feel good and this is what I'm going to get as a result of that. And so easy for us, especially ADHDers, to forget that, even though it's our own personal goal. But it's real. So I really
Yes,
appreciate you saying that.
100%. Yeah.
And so, when we are going through, you mentioned the resilience, and I'm imagining, a graph. How can you also help, with the resilience with stress management?
Let's see, with stress management, I think, oh, a big one with stress management is how when we get stressed and we kind of get in that survival mode, um, a lot of times we end up kind of beating ourselves up in the process. So not only are we like juggling a million things in because we're busy and we're stressed and all of these things, but then we have this inner talk that's kind of like, oh, well, you didn't do that right, or you didn't even get to that, or why would you even try that? You knew you didn't, it's just we're so mean to ourselves sometimes in our head and we don't even realize it. So one of my like go-tos that doesn't really require additional time or money or anything like that is just to be aware of kind of like that inner self-talk. And, you know, it's not always true. And B, kind of separating what the story we're telling ourselves in our head that we're not good enough, or we're not this, or we're not that, or we didn't do that right, to the facts. Like we did our best. And truthfully, our best usually is better than we give ourselves credit for. So that is part of it. And also just realizing that sometimes you have to slow down before you can move forward again. And it's actually better for you. If you keep going when you're super stressed and burnt out, you're going to end up hitting a wall. And it's probably not going to be by choice. It's going to be a breakdown. It's going to be a sickness. It's going to be something. Because if we don't pause and stop ourselves, something will do it for us. So it's like kind of taking a step back to be able to keep going forward sustainably. So I think sometimes we lose sight of that too when we're in that.
That being said, the inner critic for us ADHDers and, executive function is so real. Just wanted to acknowledge the inner critic and how we can remember to take a pause, to take
Mhm.
that step back, because like our brain requires like 60% of the oxygen from each breath, which is a ton. So just to remember, like, how can we take that pause and, like you said, to manage that stress. I just love that. And do you have a favorite way to take a pause or to relieve the stress?
So one of my go-tos, especially with when I'm like at work a lot of times, is deep breathing. If I know I'm just feeling like I'm hitting I just know I can feel it. I'm just tense. I am short tempered, or I'm just like, so I can just feel it. And I make myself stop. I put my phone down. I don't look at my computer, and I take 6 extremely deep breaths, as deep as I possibly can. And yep. And then exhale. And I do that 6 times. I don't know what my thing is with 6. I do think I learned that somewhere. And then I just take a minute and then revisit whatever I was doing. And literally probably 70 to 80% of the time, I even just with 6 breaths, I feel better and a little more clear, because we don't breathe when we're going through life. When we're stressed, we're taking very short breaths. And I'm sure know, and that really disconnects that mind body connection. And we're not thinking clearly. We're not getting oxygen to our brain. We're not, it's all of these things. So I think deep breathing is huge. And going for a walk, practicing mindfulness, stuff like that. It's little things, it's just little things. It's micro habits to turn to, I think, that gets you through.
Yeah, I have to point out what you said, which is like it should be a bumper sticker, but we don't breathe when we are going through life, and it's so true. Some whatever that looks like for our listeners, but yeah, just to be mindful, like you said, and take that breath, and just when that overwhelm hits and like all of these life things are happening, like how can we ask for help, and how can we remember to tune into our why and those, like not debrief sessions, but how can we get ourselves to have a full cup again?
Yes, 100%. And I think I think you had used this analogy with me once, the spoons. What was it like? How many, you can, where you're putting your energy into, and, you can only do so much. And just being realistic with yourself is big, because we don't have to, when we're stressed, sometimes we feel like we have to get everything done right now. It's like all these things are swirling in our head and we have to do this and we have to do that. And it's like, no, what can you do right now? And what's going to be the most effective thing? Everything else, forget about it, because you can't do more than one thing at a time. So it's like sometimes just like breathing and stopping and thinking about that is a big deal.
Yeah, and something else that's really coming up for me is pr knowing your priorities, because we have all these things on our to-do list, and our brains will innately tell us it all has to get done like one time, and sometimes we don't get anything done because we don't know where to start. So for our listeners that could need help with getting those things done, I would say start with prioritizing is like super helpful.
Yes, 100%. And to add to that, when setting your priorities, like a lot of times external situations end up setting our priorities for us if we don't do it. So that's why we feel like everything's screaming, we need this, we need that. But it's like getting quiet and saying, what is important to me? What do I need to get done? Forget what everyone else needs for me right now. What do I need? And we feel we don't do that enough at all.
I totally agree. And to piggyback off what you're saying, so so you mentioned, your stress relief exercises, but I wanted to ask, so how do you help your clients cope with anxiety, stress, and other mental health challenges to improve their overall well-being?
So that's an interesting one. It's kind of like that area where we coaching crosses with, our therapy and stuff like that. But it's definitely awareness, bringing awareness to what we're feeling. Um, and all of it, kind of like mindfulness, meditation, but like bringing a lot of times what we're feeling, we'll be like, oh, we're anxious, but it's like, let's attach a feeling to what's going on with us. Like, are we sad? Are we angry? Are we, feeling guilty for something? Like, there's so many other feelings that we can attach to something, but sometimes we resort to the same one all of the time. But I think it's important for us to be able to attach a specific feeling to a name to what we're actually feeling. And then we can dig deeper as to like what's kind of causing that, or, and understanding ourselves. I think that's a big deal. And I'm not saying, anxiety is a total thing, depression, all of those clinical, diagnoses. But sometimes the start is to really be aware and kind of learn about yourself and your feelings. And my biggest thing is to journal about everything. Whenever you're feeling kind of stuck, or not great, or journaling, writing it out is a great way to process what's flying around up here, and we can't really understand it. But if we can just jot it down and then read it back, it's like, well, wait a minute, like you can understand it from a different perspective. And I think that's very helpful.
You had such an energy shift when you mentioned journaling, and I feel like you might do journaling so different than the way I do it. But I'm curious, you read out loud what you wrote up in your journal?
Sometimes, so it's interesting, in true ADHD form, I journal differently all the time. Sometimes it's just a gratitude list. Sometimes it's whatever it's I just write what's going on in my head to get it out of my head. And then sometimes I will read back on something that I, wrote a day or two ago and I'm still processing it and I'm on day 3 and I'm still kind of feeling differently about it or writing about it. And just seeing the kind of evolution of my different moods and my different days, it's like, man, that's the same person writing those things, but it all was very, I don't subjective. I guess it was how I was feeling that day. What was going on was how I was perceiving a situation. So it is interesting when and I don't always read them back. Sometimes I don't want to read them, but it does help me in certain times. Yeah. How do you journal? What is your like go-to journal method?
Same, not same. Whatever is coming to my mind, I jot it down till I'm done with whatever is going on in my mind. But I don't, listeners don't do what I do. I've been I don't know, I just do it.
I'll read it back. Like, don't read it back. But yeah, no, I mean, that is it's good because for me, sometimes, and I journal in the morning, is I wake up and I don't know why, but it's like the thoughts start immediately, like swirling, and and I'm like, oh my gosh, you just woke up. Give yourself a minute. And sometimes if I just sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and just write it down, it's like, then I can move forward. I feel like I did something with all of that stuff in my head, even if I didn't physically do anything.
So it almost sounds like you might journal in the morning and the evening.
Yeah, it depends. It honestly, I think sometimes with scheduling, it depends when fit it in, get it in when you can fit it in. I don't know. So I prefer morning, but sometimes I'll do it at lunchtime. Sometimes I'll do it in the evening, but it's really when I have some downtime to kind of process things.
That's important. And also something came up for me is before I go to bed at night, I write down 10 things I'm really grateful for. And the
Love
first thing
that.
I write every single day is I got out of bed. Um,
Hmm.
I might cry, but I'm just saying a lot of people, some of my clients will fight me on, gratitude or positive, and I just want our listeners to know that it literally can be as simple as you got out of bed, you did the life chores of brushing your teeth, which, long term, you might not have teeth. I'm just saying, what can we look into the positive things? I wake up every single morning with the mindset of today is the best day ever. And if you listen to my recording with Tracy Outsuka, she asked me all these questions, but I was not born that way. I was not born with, oh, today's the best day ever. I have to literally, and I don't want to say it's law of attraction, but I have to tell myself it's the best day because life is so hard and the 80 day-to-day challenges of ADHD are so hard that it's so easy to get discouraged and to not want to keep going and to give up. And so, yeah, just having that mindset of that, that mental resilience, like you brought up, in seeing the increase of patterns. Yeah, it's a muscle we have to strengthen over time.
Yes, 100. I mean, even what you're doing is you're rewiring your brain in a way, what you're speaking, what you're thinking, it becomes your reality, right? So if that's what even if there's, craziness goes on throughout the day, but your reality, you've already set yourself up to have the best day ever. So, even if you fall off a little bit, that's what your brain is looking for, the best day ever. So I think that's fantastic. And, to feel like that every morning or to tell yourself that.
And it's also another important thing to point out is you were able to journal and see success through seeing your hand, writing it out in a pen and paper on paper. So it's also important to not only just our listeners, if that's okay to insert this, but understanding how our brain receives and communicates and processes information. So how do we intake information and how can we then communicate that information? And that will segue into not the next question, the following question, but I wanted to ask, so we're talking about this personal transformation. So how do you help your clients explore self-discovery and uncover their true identity and progress on their personal growth journey?
So that's my favorite thing to do. um, So I'm a big advocate for vision boards. I sometimes call them action boards. And I think that if you ask, most people in your life, what is it that you want? Like, what is your vision? Most of us don't even have one. Because we're so busy just kind of getting through the day or, paying bills, or if you're a caretaker, taking care of people. And So I think that really kind of connecting, working with clients to get in touch with their true purpose and kind of like reconnect with that because um, that's kind of where all those goals come from. It's where that why comes from. And it's kind of like Stephen Covey. I will probably quote him about 5 more times throughout this, but it's like starting with the end in mind. Like in order to make decisions, or choices that align with your values and where you want to go, you have to know where you want to go. And it makes you feel like your choices are much more intentional. So I think when I'm able to help clients align with their version and their values and their vision and really kind of get back to that, you, even if it's the smallest things, you feel like you're living a more fulfilled life, even if externally not much has changed for you.
And did you say Stephen Covey?
Yes.
I knew I liked you for a reason. But anyways, and you're also in the workplace. But I loved what you said with the quotation. And I also love that you said action board. I haven't heard of it that way, but I almost like action board more than vision board because it gives it more instruction of like how the identity, the purpose of how you can use this board. So I really love that saying.
Yeah,
And
because it definitely, like a lot of times people see vision board and they're like, okay, I just have to look at this thing and everything's going to come, to mind. And it's like, you have to have the vision, but then you have to take the actions you're looking at that and you know what you want. So you've opened those pathways in your brain to say, this is what I want. Then you have to take action towards them and kind of like, take those opportunities and stuff. So yeah.
yeah, and another thing with the psychoeducation of ADHD is the picture thinking or the future picture thinking of seeing like where we'll like our future and what that looks like for us. And so much of that, even for me, was like if you ask me the question, I can then develop the answer in like that picture of the future thinking. But and that is also a deficit for ADHD or so. If you're listening and that's hard for you, don't think it just comes naturally. So that's why I like the action board is because it gives me the visual of what it looks like. And we can
Yes.
take little steps closer to get there. And even to be more realistic of having visuals of the steps to get there in case you're someone who a mountain is a climb. It could take 4 hours to get up there. So to like seeing the steps of what it looks like to go through that process, the sweat and the grit or whatever it looks like for you so that we can actually see it through.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny you said that about the picture connection because I actually did in-depth studying on vision boards because I do vision board workshops like in the workplace and stuff to kind of reconnect people. So when I was looking into it, most of the a lot of times you'll see sometimes when people do vision boards, they'll put words, but you should put as little words as possible, even if it's a clipping or something, but it really should be picture based because it can tap into your subconscious a lot easier because you're connecting it with a picture and you're connecting that with the action. But when you see a word, we see a lot of words sometimes and it's not doing the same thing in our brain as a picture, like you said, that visual and what that looks like.
And what's screaming out to me right now is the meaning of because I'm dyslexic and sometimes I will actually put the wrong word to a meaning. So like that's why having even an image with the word, I can better like they say picture is 1,000 words, whatever.
Right, right.
But just to know that sometimes like don't give up on your vision and keep like if you don't find the first image or what you're looking or what you're seeing to not give up to keep like regenerate if you're on chat GBT like what else is more realistic for me like just don't give up like what else what is walk away knowing with I can do this is 8 out of 10 doable like more 7 out of 10 doable versus or 8 out of 10 because I feel like if it's impossible we won't actually do it.
Right. If it's not too, yeah, you nailed that. Because it is like sometimes if it's something that's not, it's so far in the distance, that doesn't mean you can't get there, but it means in this round, because you're not just going to do one vision board or action board in your life. You're most likely, I mean, I like to do them every 6 months, but it's an annual thing. It's something that can keep you going. And those visions change, those pictures change, and those goals change. But like you said, it's a incremental thing.
So, this has been so helpful. If it's okay, let's transition to, in this sense, where we're talking about a vision board for personal transformation. How can you also help your working professional clients who are navigating career changes, transitions, I'm sorry, seeking growth and advancing professionally along the lines of the trans development?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit similar in reconnecting with your vision, but I think first and foremost, when you're going through a life transition, whether it is personally or professionally, it is so important to start with the basics, to literally make sure that you are building yourself a foundation, because obviously whatever transition you're going to make, you're going to build off of that. But the foundation of making sure that, when you're going through a transition, you're making important choices, and you're trying to follow your vision. So when I say like the basics and the foundation, it is getting enough sleep. Are we exercising? Are you, how's your nutrition? How are your relationships? And I know that seems like, oh man, am I supposed to go through and check those boxes? But kind of trying to take care of yourself in those ways to set that foundation, so that when you are kind of getting quiet and thinking about what choice you're going to make in those transitions, you're making them from a place of clarity and, peace. And I feel like that foundation of those basics help us get there to, kind of explore those transitions.
Mm. That is everything you said is so powerful. So for me, what I love to do is the life wheel exercise. And if you're somebody who doesn't work well with a life wheel by like shading in where you feel, just give it a scale 1 to 10. Where do you feel you are with your health? Where are you, on a scale 1 to 10? If
Yes.
try doing a one to a scale, a rating scale, it has been so impactful for me to actually gauge where I feel like as a metric of that life category. Because our work is only 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week. We have like the balance of life in between. So yeah, keeping the smoothness, or the suave between those life like what what keeps you going, like the mechanic that's so key.
Yes, no, and I love that about the because it is assessing each area. And it's like you're not going to be killing it in all the areas. None of us are most times, but it's just trying to do your best to balance that. And if you are, making a transition for work or, something, and you're not sleeping because you're worrying about that all the time, well, that's really kind of cutting your legs out from under you, because, you're not able to wake up and make clear choices in that transition. So it's just kind
Mm.
of, figuring out what needs the most love and attention of what part of you at that time, I feel like.
I just love that. And also for our listeners, if you ever wanted to work with Krista on specifically any of these life wheel or any life, categories, there are probably 6 of them, from family, wealth, are you challenging yourself, school, all those different categories. Like you can actually dive deeper into each of those categories topics in one coaching session, or just in a session, all topics in that one session. So this is another topic you could explore on a more personal level if you wanted to. Um, but so that being said, we're talking about work-life balance. So how can you also help your clients in discovering strategies to thrive in remote work environments while maintaining a healthy life balance?
That's the question of the hour. I feel like, since COVID, the landscape of work has just changed so much. And so many people just in the blink of an eye were fully remote, right? I feel like now, things are kind of evening back out a little bit, but, it's been years of like that dramatic shift. And where we once would show up to the office and, you leave, and it was kind of like leave your work at the office. That was like you would hear that every now and then. Well, when we're working from home, there is not leaving it anywhere. It's in your house, it's infiltrated your four walls. So it's like, how do you set those boundaries that aren't naturally there, that you did not have to give any attention to previously when we were in the office? Or, you didn't have to set those intentional boundaries because you just did it naturally when you left the office. Um, So the way that, I kind of have to work with every client to see what fits for them, depending on their lifestyle and what the, kind of what their personal life is like compared to their, nature of their work. But I think there's a couple of main things. And it's setting the boundaries for yourself and for your coworkers. So it's kind of like personal and professional boundaries. So professionally, when you're working from home, kind of, not holding yourself to the standard of like, are you someone that responds to an email within 2 minutes every time it comes through, or you feel like you have to because you don't? Like, I can almost guarantee that the expectation, unless it's, a one-off situation, is not to respond in 2 minutes. But we're like, oh God, we're home. We want people to think, or not think, but know that we're working. So we need to respond right away. And it puts undue pressure on ourselves. So kind of setting those expectations with your coworkers, like, I am reading emails. I might not respond right away. I look at them at these times of the day, or, it depends on the nature of your job a lot, but setting those boundaries so that they know what to expect when they can't see you. And it also takes a level of pressure off of you to feel like you're constantly pressured to do everything right away. And same with your home life. I mean, a big thing, especially, I mean, I experienced this as a mom, are when my family is home and I'm working, because I'm physically home, just like I would be on a Saturday or Sunday, to them, I'm just as easily accessible. But to me, mentally, I'm not accessible. I need to be focused at work. So setting those expectations for your loved ones too. Like, I will say, with my son, if he's home, mommy has to get on a call for an hour. Do you have everything that you need? I kind of need quiet. When I'm done, we can take a 15-minute walk or whatever. So I explained to him what to expect so that it's not just like he knows I'm in my room and I'm shooing him out and I'm dismissing him and then you feel bad. It's a whole thing. So just setting those boundaries, I think personally and professionally, is huge. And setting timers is a big one. Especially for ADHD. I think it's and I mean, you were you're professional. I just am speaking on my life experience, but the you know, setting the timers is big because I have to make myself focus for, 30 minutes. And then I will give myself a break for 15 to 15 minutes. It depends, a variation of like, I have focus time and then break time. And I have to intentionally make myself take that break, whether it's just to stare out the window, go for a walk, put in laundry, whatever it is, and then make myself focus on that focus time. I have my phone on do not disturb. I'm doing what I need to do. And so that way and when that timer goes off, I can't ignore it. I can't be like, oh, well, that was, you have to like actually listen to your timer, but it helps you kind of manage your time and get up out of your seat. We sit for so long when we work from home. We walk to the bathroom. So yeah, just kind of managing your time and setting boundaries, I think is huge.
So I didn't mean to chuckle when you said your son closing the door. I it's so relatable of just like you said, being accessible. So I'm sorry if it came across the wrong way, but I was more so just being like, that is so relatable because also the mom guilt comes in because then you feel like you just I don't there's no the mom guilt. That's it. And it's just so, but like you even when you said your first response of like letting your coworkers know when you're gonna respond and stuff. So that has been extra helpful for me, is also like setting the expectations of when I'm gonna show up for work, leave work for the day. But like I know that when I arrive to work that day, especially working from home or in the office, it's so you can actually go to sleep at night and knowing like you did what you could. And my one of my favorite things in the world is setting expectations, because someone who like I mentioned the picture thinking and the future thinking. I don't, unless I have expectation or instruction, I don't know what the end result is. So
Right.
like I'm also not being rude to myself. I'm just being logical that I actually work a lot better with due dates and with expect instructions or expectations. And since I work for myself as an entrepreneur, I have to set all those expectations for myself. So yeah. So it's also like that's what I'm saying. I'm coming from a space of love when I say that, but it actually I am able to see the end and actually see through things because I'm setting those expectations. And it's also like you said, that boundary setting of just the love and compassion from the people around you. It just like it's like a moving train, like a productive train that just like keeps going like smoothly.
Yeah, because I knew so many. There was, and I'll be quick with this, but I've had, clients that are literally working in their kitchen while their kids are, around. And sometimes you don't have a choice, right? Like it happens, but it's very difficult and overstimulating to have, try to focus on your work while, you're juggling the kids. And then and then, like you said, the mom guilt, you feel like you're either not doing, you either have professional guilt, like you're not doing your job well enough, or you feel like you're neglecting your kids. And that takes a toll on us. We just feel like it's never enough, right? No matter which way that we do it. So I think, like you're saying, the boundaries with yourself, the boundaries with your loved ones, boundaries professionally, everyone respects boundaries. And if they don't, that is a them problem. It's not a you problem.
I love that statement. That could go a whole nother recording because I didn't know what a boundary set was. I didn't know how to set a boundary till about like 2 years ago. So, like
Ditto.
I completely. So, that being said, wherever our listeners are with setting boundaries, just know that you're like essentially visualize a castle and you have a drawbridge and you have a musk with an alligator. Your castle is like your heart and your compassion, and don't allow people to cross your drawbridge that don't treat you the way that you treat them or the way that you're supposed to be treated. So, you have the right to your drawbridge. So don't ever give up to our listeners. That being said, I'm sorry, so passionate about boundary settings. What I wanted to say is on the topic of boundary setting and being relationships, how do you help your clients in strengthening relationships, enhancing communication skills, and effectively resolving conflicts?
That's a good one. And that's honestly one that I struggle with the most. And I've realized that a lot of my clients struggle with it too, especially in like the mom in like the mom stage. I don't know, because you're so focused on you're just juggling so many things. But with relationships, boundaries are huge, first of all. You know, putting your energy into your relationships, but intentionally. And when there are times that you don't feel like you can show up in a relationship the way that you would like to, communicating that instead of, just sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we ghost. But just, and you don't have to explain yourself, but just say, I have a lot going on right now. I will reach out. If someone feels like you're kind of brushing them to the side or whatever, I just have a lot going on. I'll reach out as soon as I'm feeling better. That's 2 sentences, text. You don't know anyone else an explanation. But also on the flip side, sometimes we get so busy and we neglect our relationships. So if it's on the other side, one thing that I do, because I feel like I definitely struggle with friendships when you're kind of in like wife and mom and working land, is whenever I think of one of my friends that maybe I don't even talk to as often as I'd like, or we don't get to meet up just because our schedules don't align, I'll send them a text. I'll say, just thinking of you, hope things are going well. I would, it doesn't even have to result in a let's meet up, or, love you, or just like something, because everyone loves to know that someone is thinking of them. And even if it's just a little text, you feel better because you sent it, and they feel better and they feel connected to you because they know, despite the craziness of life, someone's thinking of them. So I think that's a big one. And lastly, sorry, I'm just rambling.
Oh.
A big thing in communication, and this has been a huge learning curve for myself, and I know for a lot of my clients, is our listening skills. Like listening to people fully, and first to understand them before we try to be understood. A lot of times conversations, instead of us actually listening, we're literally watching someone talk, and then we're in our mind, kind of getting ready with what we're going to respond with. We're not fully listening to them. And people are doing the same thing to you. So then we're always coming at each other instead of listening and truly digesting what they're saying and being curious about why they feel the way that they feel. We automatically jump to defending ourselves sometimes, especially with conflict. I think that's kind of the big thing here. So even if you don't agree with someone, I think trying to listen and being curious to understand them, it goes a long way in relationships.
And I also learning that one of the ADHD, DNA of ADHD, one of them is impulsivity. And for me, when I understood how impulsivity shows up in our lives, not only like impulse spending, abusing like alcohol. It also is the impulsiveness with our thoughts and those racing. So really, when you said being fully present, somebody who also has a hard time with hearing people like what you're saying, it's not like I'm very smart, but like later in life I have an audio delay. So then I'm also like thinking, like, should I tell them I didn't hear what they said, even though I'm super present? So like just being
Yeah.
mindful of like letting the almost insecurities go and just like it's okay to ask for them to repeat and like be
Yes.
and how like to first acknowledge. And I promise you guys that the more you practice that mind muscle connection of being fully present, it gets so much easier. um a lot of people don't like this, not everyone, but I actually, some, if I am in like a work setting, I will have a notepad, and I will, no shame, I will write down just a word to remind myself so I don't interrupt them. But and there's no shame in that, because I, to my integrity, want to let the person speak and be someone that, can listen. And there's just a lot, it took me a long time to understand how to do that though. So just go ahead.
I was going to say, especially with ADHD, it is so hard to listen. So, I mean, not listen because you are, like you said, you don't want to lose your thought. So
Mm.
it's like you're not trying to interrupt someone. You're not respecting them or listening to what they have to say. You're just like, oh God, this is going to leave me if I don't. So like, just writing something down, like you said, is great. And I still honestly kind of play around with different ways to be able to remain present and focused on what someone's saying, but I will still lose my train of thought, or I thought I had something to go with that, and then they're done, and I'm like, ooh, man. So it's like, just, and knowing that that's okay. Like you said, not feeling, beating myself up, or, you know, saying like, why can't you just have a normal conversation? Like that's what my inner critic used to tell me. And now it's like, I've kind of had to combat that, in that you listened and, you tried to remember your thought. You didn't. Okay, move on. Move on.
And I also want to acknowledge the connection piece of you texting your friend that you love them and you just acknowledging their existence. Being us ADHDers, being connected to something, a bigger purpose than us, whatever that looks like for you, and knowing that you're not alone. That might be not be the correct like terminology in the textbook, but just knowing that we are connected to other people like us. So it helps us pull us forward in whatever ways that looks like for you guys, whether community or with individuals. Finding that connection can really help you when you're, that DSM-5 says ADHD is a mental, like some like this mood influx. So that connection piece can really be helpful when we feel like, we want to have some balance too, and talking things,
Yes.
processing things through. I apologize. That wasn't like, that was not directly on what we were saying, but just I really appreciate you letting me say that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, I love the insight, because that is something that, like, I could give the advice, all day, like this is what you should do. But when you're working with your ADHD, sometimes, it doesn't, you don't always process it or react the way that like someone, you know what I'm saying? Like it's nice to know the background, and that again, you're not alone in the way that you feel often.
So that being said, for our listeners right here, today, with our discussion today is not just, this is just a taste of a few ways you can work with Krista in a one-on-one coaching session, not only for adult, high functioning adults looking to advance themselves, but also working professionals. So, whatever little bit you want to get curious on and dive deeper with. Krista, can you please tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at thrive_era_coaching. And you can always reach out via email at Krista@thriveeracoaching.com. And I do have a website, www.thriveeracoaching.com.
And Krista has a great weekly or newsletter e-blast I really enjoy reading, that are very catchy and spicy sometimes. So encourage you guys to also take a look at that as well. And you also mentioned vision board exercise workshops or not. I think that's in the newsletter as well. or something?
Yes, definitely. So we offer two versions of workshops. We do workshops for companies and businesses that hire us as like a team building and also kind of like engaging thing for their employees. So we will come to businesses and set up a vision board workshop. And we also do it more with like a group of, if you want like a group of girlfriends and you have something at your house and almost like a sip and paint, but it's more of like a vision board. And you can just kind of connect and it's kind of nice to get the girls together and talk about your dreams that you may not have talked about otherwise. I think it's been a really rewarding experience working with people.
That sounds like too much fun. Sign me up. So anyways, thank you so much.